So I've just completed a 48-hour cruise, making it the shortest cruise available to take in the United States. And in this video, I'm going to give you an honest review of my experience, highlighting the good and of course the bad. Of course, we will be sailing into every category for this video, from the food, the pricing, my cabin, the one destination that we visited, the entertainment on board, the nightlife, the service, all of the little giblets. However, I do have to put the disclaimer out there. This review is going to be of my experience on board, as well as the other passengers that I spoke to while on board. You yourself could go on this very same cruise ship with the same itineraries and have the exact same experience, or maybe a little different. Essentially, what I'm saying is, if you happen to have a gripe, a problem, a conundrum with anything that I say in this video that isn't factually correct and it's just an opinion, while I respect your opinion, you're gonna have to suck it up on this one. So for this cruise, I will be embarking on a 2-night sailing on board the MSC SEASCAPE out of Miami, going over to the Bahamas. Now, the MSC SEASCAPE cruise ship initially launched back in November of 2022. Part of the Seaside Evo class, it cost $1 billion to build. It has 20 decks, holds 4,500 passengers at full capacity, 20 bars, 6 pools, 11 restaurants, a robotic arm thrill ride, which by the way, unfortunately is not free, and there is of course a lot more to do on board, which we'll talk about later. As far as the price for this 48-hour cruise, the bare bones price, which set me back roughly $250 with the port fees and taxes. However, I would then include a drink package for the entirety of my cruise, bringing the total to precisely $590.42. Now, for the first day of my cruise, my day would have to start a little early, and by a little early, I mean roughly 3 a.m., as I live in Tampa and I would have to get to Miami. Now, normally I do fly over to Miami. However, I felt like I was in a driving mood, roughly about 4 hours and some change, and I didn't have to deal with any traffic, so I figured why not. However, once I arrived over to Port Miami, it is very important to note for all of you that things can be a little wishy-washy sometimes over at that port because there's always something going on. For example, the tunnel to get to the port could be open, it could be closed, you never know. There could be a marathon going on downtown. So just be aware for things to be a little congested over in that area. However, I would eventually make it through and end up at my terminal, which happened to be Terminal AA. Parking for this cruise would be $35 a day, which I think many of us can agree that the parking prices at these cruise ports are getting a little up there. Needless to say, there was plenty of places to park and the location was super convenient. On my way down to the terminal, I would drop my bag off. It was super convenient, got my name confirmed and everything. However, I did notice also that the terminal is now sharing with Royal Caribbean. So for those of you out there, just a little heads up, if you see that there is a giant MSC sign and you think that you're maybe not supposed to be there, double check. Inside Terminal AA, I gotta admit, it is absolutely beautiful inside. Now, this terminal is brand spanking new. I was actually one of the first people to ever go in that terminal when it opened just a couple months ago when I was sailing on board the MSC Royal America from the shipyard over in France all the way over to Miami. It is extremely organized, so much so that the ship, I believe, was full, which you'll see here in a bit, but there wasn't nobody in the terminal. They were getting everybody out of there expeditiously on board the ship, ready to indulge in their drink packages, cookies, and well, whatever else they liked. After everyone's favorite moment, and if it's not, it definitely should be, I am of course talking about walking on the gangway before boarding your cruise. I would finally be on board the MSC SEASCAPE. Well, technically I would be on this ship 3 other times prior to this, including the maiden voyage back in 2022, but nevertheless, the first thing I would notice is the beautiful atrium area, which I do have to admit that that area is probably the most beautiful than you would see on really any other cruise ship. It is important to note, by the way, that once you get on board, like most cruise lines out there, with the exception of a few that have all of the add-ons inside of the terminal, you can purchase everything from your drink packages to Wi-Fi, dining packages, arrange daycare for the kids, all over in that atrium area as soon as you board. And one thing that I thought was super convenient, and I think every cruise line should do this to save you a trip, trip, potentially from guest services, they have kiosks, little machines that is a card activation point, meaning you can take your credit card and debit card and load it into that machine and put it on file for all of your incidentals and charges that you will incur while on your cruise. Now, after I got on board the MSC SEASCAPE, the first thing I would do is, of course, look out for safety first and check into my muster drill. And it was a convenient process. They just tap your card and you are free to go. Well, once you get to your room, there is a safety or muster video that you absolutely must watch. It's super important so that you know what to do and where to go in the event of an emergency. I would then go down to deck 5 to check out my stateroom or cabin. On the way to my cabin, I would take the elevator, and something I've noticed more and more on modern cruise ships is that they don't have standard elevators. They have something known as destination elevators. Essentially, you put the deck or floor in which you are trying to go to on the screen, and it will display what elevator you are supposed to go to. Now, this is something that people either hate or love. I'm a little indifferent about it. I kind of got like a hate-love relationship with it, but it does seem convenient at times. And something that wasn't on board this ship last time I was there is this screen that gives an exact number, or time rather, as far as when the elevator would arrive. My cabin would be 5101, a deluxe ocean view. Now, this would not be a balcony. This is something, honestly, call me a spoiled brat, but I am used to balconies, but this one was different, and I honestly didn't have that much of a problem with it. It had a porthole, and the room overall was really nice. It wouldn't be in the category, personally, for me, of luxury. However, the bed was comfortable, wasn't firm, it wasn't soft, it was somewhere right in between. I had a couch available, a desk, and it was 183 square foot. Now, by the way, do keep in mind for all of you, I have made a dedicated tour video. I'll leave it right up here, as well as link it in the description box, as well as a real-time video on my vlog channel, so you can see my impressions and a little overview of the room from another angle as well. It'll also be in the description box below. The cabin overall, aside from there not being a balcony, which many people did not have a problem with, or would not have a problem with rather, I didn't have too much of a problem with it, but it was definitely different, and I would say overall, considering the price, it was a pretty good deal. The bathroom overall was not super spacious, but I'm also not a big guy. I am 5'6.5". However, either way, I would imagine somebody that is maybe a little fluffier wouldn't have a problem in this bathroom whatsoever, let alone the shower. And I think the room overall was good, and personally, I did not have a problem with it at all. After visiting my cabin, I would explore the MSC SEASCAPE. However, do keep in mind that I'm very familiar with this ship. It wasn't my first, second, or third go around. It was my fourth, but I do think the ship overall is beautiful. However, do I think that MSC, not only on the SEASCAPE but other ships, go a little overboard with all of the silver and shiny things? Yeah. I would say that MSC kind of tries a little too hard, even though the ships, once again, are very beautiful, but they try a little too hard to kind of fit in the, let's say, premium category. Maybe it is a stretch that they're trying to kind of give off this luxury feel, but it does come off as more cost-effective, but nice, in my personal opinion. Anyway, I do once again think the ship was beautiful, well designed, and they did utilize the space very well. You have to keep in mind that on a cruise ship, every single square inch is real estate to be used for, yes, relaxing, enjoying, but also potentially making money. For example, the pool deck, which I do think is nice, and the setup over there overall is beautiful. People tend to be very happy with that area. Extremely popular with the hot tubs, the pool, and the dance area, as well as the Robotron, the robotic arm thrill ride. It is $10 per person, and, well, it was functioning well. People seemed to want to really indulge in that experience, and there was a line throughout the cruise. It wasn't open at the beginning of the cruise. However, once we hit the sea, things changed. There are plenty of amazing, breathtaking viewing points. They have an adults only area. There are plenty of things for the kids to do, like a giant arcade, as well as a water park. They have all the other recreational activities as well, like a basketball court. Of course, they have a casino where you could try your luck and potentially make a bajillion dollars, never have to worry about any problems again whatsoever. No, I'm joking. Obviously, we all know, and it's true, more money equals more problems. You ever heard of the lottery curse? By the way, in the casino, it is non-smoking smoking for the general areas. However, there is rooms that are dedicated to smoking. Like you'll see on other cruise ships, they have like a smaller, more condensed, tighter area that is available. There are plenty of places for you to dine at. We will get into the food category in a bit. There is the cabaret where they have variety shows, and it also turns into a nightclub in the evening. And trust me, you'll want to see what was going on in there. It is absolutely diabolical, but in a good way. Well, the most of it anyway. You have a full-fledged sports bar. There's also a state-of-the-art fitness center. Honestly, it's one of my favorites that I would have ever seen on board any cruise ship. And of course, you have plenty, and I mean plenty of places to relax on board and lounge around. As far as the Sailaway party, I gotta admit, it was a lot of fun. I would put it in the category of maybe kinda sorta like Carnival, but very different. It had a European twist, and it was a lot more interactive in terms of all of the staff. Normally on Carnival cruise ships, the staff would come out for a little bit and then they would just dip off into the sunset, never seen again. Well, yeah, of course, later on in the cruise. But you had all of the staff there that was just happy to be there, having a good time, and it seemed like the entire ship was there, dancing and shaking and jiving, and well, it was just a good experience. Definitely one of the better ones that I have had on board MSC cruise ships. It does seem like they are figuring out their formula to ensure people have a good time right out the hot gates. Also, for the Sailaway festivities, if you are 18 and up, you want something a little more chill, you can go down over to the adults only area. They have what's called a sunset DJ, and they aren't just there for the beginning of the cruise. They are there literally every night. And I do have to admit, that area is extremely beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead and sail into the food, because as many know, this is something that is a little controversial with MSC. However, I do believe that the tides are slowly turning in the favor of MSC cruise ships. What you got to understand, for those of you out there that don't know, that MSC is a European line. Well, specifically, they are an Italian line. And the food over there, as somebody that has cruised MSC not only in the United States, but also over in Europe, it is a little different. And they try to cater to their European audience, but it does make the food in the United States, if you're sailing out of there, well, a little, not bad, but unseasoned. The way I put it, it's like they've always been afraid to put some salt and pepper on the food, except for the pizza. The pizza and the pasta, I do believe that they get right. Mwah, chef's kiss, absolutely amazing. Now, keep in mind, there are 11 dining options and restaurants on board the MSC SEASCAPE, and with 48 hours, I just simply couldn't try it all. Well, I could, but I would literally be hobbling out of there. While on board, I ate at 3 primary locations. The first one is the buffet area, the marketplace, and I do have to admit they have a nice variety, a nice spread over there. However, keep in mind they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and typically that place is absolutely packed. However, you will of course find what you are looking for there, especially if you are not trying to pay additional fees and prices for the specialty dining options on board. I did, however, pay and indulge in the Butcher's Cut Steakhouse. Now, I do go to steakhouses often, and I would put Butcher's Cut up there. Does it blow me away? No. But is it good for the cruise? Absolutely. It is delicious food. I want to make that very, very clear. It's $55 a person, and when I went there, I had some surf and turf and a couple other little tasty morsels, and it is a restaurant that I would, of course, be happy to go back to every time I go on a MSC cruise ship. I also dined at Teppanyaki, and I absolutely love Teppanyaki and hibachi on any cruise ship. Now, would I say the teppanyaki was good? Yeah, it was delicious. I absolutely enjoyed everything except for the Wagyu. They had like some honestly cheap Wagyu steak, and it really was not good, but everything else in terms of the seafood and lobster was absolutely delicious. Would I say the teppanyaki experience is the best on board MSC cruise ships? No, absolutely not. Believe it or not, I think Carnival has the best teppanyaki or hibachi, and then you have Royal Caribbean following up with that, and then maybe NCL, and then toward the back area you got MSC. But the food was still delicious. I have no complaints, and the price for that would be $55. However, do keep in mind that there is a duo or like a date dining package you can get for these restaurants where you can get 2 people for $99. Now, I do honestly wish I could have tested out and tried more restaurants for all you fine folk in terms of a review. However, keep in mind I was on board the ship for 48 hours or 2 days, so I can only do so much. However, I have been on board the ship on multiple occasions where I do try out the other restaurants like the Ocean Cake Seafood Restaurant and many more. So just go ahead and browse through the ship life category and you'll find what you're looking for. In terms of service on board the the MSC Seascape. I think overall the service was great, especially when you consider the price point of sailing on board this cruise ship, whether it is a week-long cruise or even a 48-hour cruise. Naturally, the best service you are going to get on board any MSC cruise ship is indulging and paying for it and staying in the MSC Yacht Club, where you got your butler, and the service over there is extremely speedy and expeditious and the fastest you'll ever see. I would highly recommend the MSC Yacht Club if you do get the opportunity and find the price point you are looking for. By the way, shameless plug here, if you want to stay in the MSC Yacht Club or anywhere on board the MSC Seascape or any cruise for that matter, or even a vacation, you can check out our amazing travel agent sponsors over at Lux Rally, link in the description box below. We will make sure you have the best experience possible, especially if you are staying in the MSC Yacht Club. Anywho, I would say the service was good, not great, but you could find this hit or miss action on really any cruise. I would say if you're trying to go to the bar, there are a lot of people that go on MSC cruise ships and shout from the rooftop racism and all of that. I don't think that is necessarily the case. Personally, I haven't experienced it. It's just a simple game of priority. A little pro tip for all of you that are new to cruising and don't know the game: go find your favorite bar, or maybe the popular bar, or someplace you know for a fact you'll be hanging out at, and right out of the hot gates, as soon as the cruise starts, tip your favorite bartender about $20 or so, and they will, I promise you, prioritize you for literally the entire cruise. Just give them a couple dollars here and there in between after that initial $20 tip. Ooh, now it's time. Let's get into my favorite category, which is, of course, the entertainment and the nightlife, because there are some things I like and some things, well, not so much. Now, in terms of the overall entertainment, I would say that MSC does the job. It is something that you'd want to maybe sit down and check out while you are sailing the seven seas. They've got your bands, they've got your singers, they've got your pianist, and also in the theater, they have production shows, typically running between 7:30 for the matinee and 9:30 for the final and second show. And the entertainment on board for the production shows are, well, they're good, they're not great. There was once upon a time before the COVID pandemic in which you had MSC that licensed out Cirque du Soleil shows, which I heard were absolutely phenomenal. And now they have all their stuff in-house, and I would say the shows are Now, to be very clear, this is no disrespect at the performers at all. I think they are absolutely amazing. However, somebody that has not only worked on board cruise ships as a living as an entertainer and dancer, I've also worked at theme parks, and I've toured all over the world as a professional entertainer. My lens is just a little bit different. But when it comes to MSC, their problem is, unlike other cruise lines, in case you don't know, Royal Caribbean, NCL has an entertainment facility, a massive one over here in Tampa where I live. Royal Caribbean / Celebrity, they also have one in Miami. Carnival has one in Miami. And, well, unfortunately, MSC doesn't have one. Virgin even has one. And this allows them to really curate the show and make sure it is fine-tuned and, well, right as rain, and perfected for the cruise ship. And if you don't do this, well, the quality is diminished. Not to mention that MSC is doing a different show every day, whereas the other cruise lines will have these perfectly curated shows to the point to where there is maybe like 2 or 3 mainstream shows that is perfected. I do believe that the entertainment on board is getting better, of course, little by little. I was on board their newest ship, the MSC World America, and I do really enjoy the shows there. So maybe things will continue to increase in terms of the quality. Now, as far as the nightlife, there is a lot to unpack. However, I'm going to try to be as quick about it as I can. The nightlife on board MSC ships, I would argue, is among the best, because MSC is a European line. They're number 1 in Southern Europe, France, Italy, Spain. They are number 1 over in South America. So you got a lot of Brazilians on board, Spanish, you got Italian, and, well, unfortunately, you got some French too. I guess they're okay. My point is that you have people from countries that are known for shaking a tail feather and partying like you wouldn't believe. So they have the parties that are out on deck. Normally, the white party that we had on the first day would have been at the pool deck, but it was raining and the weather was inclement, so we ended up having it in the atrium, which I think, honestly, on board MSC cruise ships, either or works just fine. The atrium party looks absolutely epic. It is a good time. The only thing I did notice is that they had like some kind of competition where there were some girls that I believe were maybe not of drinking age that won a bottle of champagne. But hey, I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe they just looked young, which is something that I'm going to point out here in another piece of the video. I did, of course, dance, have a good time. There is a salsa area, which is really nice, but over in the cabaret is where the after party is every night, and usually during the early evening hours in the atrium, they had the white party, and then I believe we had the tropical party. So these are the two nightly events that they had on board. They probably switch it up, I think, and have like an 80s night and all that. You know, the standard thing that cruise lines do. But in the cabaret, it is absolutely packed to the brim with people, at least for my particular cruise, and everybody there was having a good time. Now, one thing that I do have an issue or grievance with when it comes to MSC is the age situation. Unlike other cruise lines where there is security and there is signs stating that it is 18 and up, MSC is the only cruise line that I have personally seen within the United States that does not abide and enforce these rules. Now, of course, there's a very simple explanation for this. Once again, MSC is a European Italian line, and over in Europe, if you haven't been, I've spent a lot of time over in Europe. Things are very different, especially with the Italian culture. The family goes out together, they stay out together, they party together, including the dad, the mom, the newborn child, the child that isn't born yet, and everybody in between. They all go out. But when you have a place like the United States, I would say the culture is different. Not worse, but it's very, very different, as many of you know. And I don't know how many times I've seen some sketchy stuff go on board MSC cruise ships for this reason. I'm talking about fights and, well, everything in between. I do believe that should change. Aside from that, the nightlife on MSC cruise ships is among the best, hands down. As far as the one destination, Porter Island, that we visited, we went to MSC's private island over in the Bahamas, Ocean Cay or Key, however it is that you want to pronounce it. I know this is a big controversy. Either way, Ocean Cay. And that island is pretty simple overall in the best of ways. And we stayed there essentially from sun up to sundown, and well, they had a lighthouse show normally, but I think they did an hour early, so pretty much everybody missed it. I got a clip from another person, but it is a cool spectacle to see. But I would say for all of you out there, if you get a chance, MSC does something that for some reason the other cruise lines don't. They have times where they stay out there either late or overnight, and during those evening hours, they have a beach party, which is absolutely epic. You should try it out if you get the chance. Now, overall, would I say that the cruise was worth the money? Yeah, I would say roughly $600 for Wi-Fi and drinks and everything that came with the cruise. It definitely was worth the $600. However, my only gripe with this type of sailing is that it is too short. Personally, for me, I am somebody that likes to float around the 5 days. If I can get to that, a week is fine depending on the ship, but that's usually my sweet spot. When you get to these, well, 2-day and 3-day and 4-day sailings, actually I have another one coming up, it tends to be a little rushed. It is literally impossible to do everything that you want to do on a ship of that size. These types of sailings are essentially for quick getaways, and I would also argue for people that are kind of around locally and just want to get away. I couldn't imagine somebody flying all the way from New York to Miami specifically to get on board a cruise that is this short. Now, do keep in mind that there are a lot of cruise lines that do offer this same type of sailing. I believe Royal Caribbean, it's a 3-day sailing as opposed to 2. You got Utopia of the Seas, Freedom of the Seas. There's other ships that offer shorter sailings. You got Margaritaville with the little ship that could over in West Palm Beach. The Paradise, they offer short sailings, and Carnival has 3-day sailings as well. I would say, yes, if it's something that you want to do in terms of partying or maybe a party/booze cruise, it is the route to go down. However, I do believe, especially when the ship is of this magnitude, like a Utopia of the Seas or the MSC Seascape, there's not enough time to do everything that you want to do, and there is going to be a little piece of you that is going to feel, well, left out if you're not specifically there to party. Now, to wrap this up, the disembarkation on the way out, ending and including my cruise, which was a very sad moment, was pretty quick overall. I believe there was a little congestion here and there, but I was able to get my bag and get right off and head on out into the parking lot. Getting into the terminal, there is a place to collect your bag, and well, everything is done with technology these days. You don't have to pull out your passport or anything. There are 2 separate lines for the passport and birth certificate, but once they go past and separate those lines, you just scan your face, and just like that, you are free to go back into the wild of the real world. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I'm missing. No, I think I'm good. And if not, I have probably covered it in the other reviews. So of course, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below, especially if you have been on a cruise that is this short, or if you have been on board the MSC Seascape. Hit that like button on your way out. If you want to book a cruise, make sure to check out our travel agent sponsor, Lux Rally. And know as usual, I love and appreciate every single one of you. I'll see you later. Take it easy.